Yeah, as I've said, I think that all religions are wrong in the same way, in that they privilege faith over reason, but they're not all equally bad in the same way all the time. I mean, if I'd been writing in the 1930s, I would certainly have said that the Roman Catholic Church was the most dangerous religion in the world because of its open alliance with fascism and anti-Semitism, which the damage from that our culture has never recovered from and never will. But at the moment, it's very clear to me that the most toxic form that religion takes is the Islamic form. The horrible idea of wanting to end up with Sharia, with a religion-governed state, a state of religious law, and that the best means of getting there is jihad, holy war, and that Muslims have a special right to feel aggrieved enough to demand this, I think is absolute obscene wickedness, and I think their religion is nonsense. And in its entirety. The idea of God speaks to some illiterate merchant warlord in Arabia, and he's able to write this down perfectly, and it contains the answers to all human. Don't waste my time. It's bullshit.
But you're saying the same about it.
Also, that God speaks. The Archangel Gabriel speaks only Arabic, it seems.
I just want to say, in retrospect, you were very civil, actually. I don't know what I was thinking.
This is
the same characterization of all religions?
Well, actually, no, because remember, Islam makes one special claim for itself. All religions claim to be revealed truth. They all are founded by divine revelation. But Islam rather dangerously says, ours is the last and final one. There can't be any more after this. This is God's last word. Now, that's straight away a temptation to violence and intolerance, and if you note, it's a temptation they seem quite willing to fall for.
I'm presuming that by evil and good you're referring to the current clash, okay? I'll make that assumption. I found a certain sense of exhilaration on September the 11th, which has not left me since. I thought, now here, if you want it, is the enemy in absolutely plain view. All the things I write about in my book, intolerance, racism, stupidity, religious cultism, the refusal to think, the refusal to allow skepticism, the denial of reason. There it all is, perfectly embodied and symbolized with its consequences, and its means are its ends. In other words, civilian murder, filthy, murderous attack on civil society is inscribed in the means and the ends. The means are dead bodies. They use civilians to kill civilians, if you follow me, if you can imagine the conditions on those planes in the last minutes. Right, I thought, okay, now I absolutely know what side I'm on. I don't need the president to tell me, and I hope very few people did. In some sense, I don't think this has anything to do with that. The Al-Qaeda attack was not on that. The Al-Qaeda attack was directly on American civil society. The Al-Qaeda people are trying to impose fascism on the Muslim world, have succeeded in imposing it in one country already. They hope to win their argument in the Muslim world by bringing it to the streets of the West. This is an unbelievably fierce challenge, therefore. As I said earlier, it's impossible for it to succeed, but it can do a great deal of damage meanwhile. Therefore, whether President Bush says he's against it or not should be irrelevant to you or to me. So the question is, how against it are you? What are you going to do about it? I think to start the argument by clearing the throat and taking a step back and say, well, let's first deconstruct American foreign policy would be an error. I mean, those arguments go on anyway. They'll have to go on anyway. I'm not going to change my side on any of them. But the question is, do you recognize this as a challenge to yourself, to your own society? Do you feel solidarity with the other societies that are being mauled and profaned by this kind of theocratic fascism? And if so, what are you doing to help them out and build, intensify that solidarity?
I've had enough of it, especially about how it's so much like the Blitz. I mean, just look here for a second. Throughout the whole of the 1930s, the British stolidly and phlegmatically and stoically lined up to vote for conservatives who were trying to give away Europe to Hitler. They wanted him to do it. When Chamberlain came back from Munich and was greeted by the Queen Mother, the Queen Mum on Buckingham Palace balcony, they all flooded into the streets to applaud. They couldn't get enough of it. They wanted a quiet life. They love business as usual. Yeah, let's do that. And then when it all goes wrong, they get what they've earned for this, then what else can they do but stand still under the bombing where they can't move? It's an island, for Christ's sake. When they could run away, they did. They sent their children to the country. The rich people moved into the well-fortified hotels.
You read George Orwell on what it's like under the Blitz, or Stephen Spender, his time as a fire brigade officer. Fire brigade would wait for the flames to die out and then they'd loot everything from the houses. They'd say, well, actually, we don't take children's toys, Squire, but everything else pretty much fair game. There's always something. It was a disgraceful performance. They blamed the Jews for hoarding goods and for pushing in front of queues. They panicked and trampled each other to get into the underground, which now people would trample themselves getting out of, to get away from it. It was all pretty ghastly. So enough of this romanticization of the English. Had enough of it. But at least there was one thing you could say. Nobody said, well, why don't we give them what they want, the bombers? Why don't we just surrender? Why don't we look for the root causes of their grievance? There was at least none of that bullshit. And there won't be any of that bullshit anywhere where I can raise my voice either. Say it once, so not to have to say it again. You do not deal yourself a hand in the conduct or formation of British foreign or defence policy by putting a bomb on a bus in Tavistock Square. You do not. Final. Do I have to say it twice? No. Will I listen to anyone who says that we should? I certainly will not. I certainly will not. And nor should anyone else. And the Prime Minister will not do so. And what people ought to realise is that there is indeed a connection between this and the Iraq War. The same people did this at King's Cross and Edgware Road and Aldgate last week, who last Friday blew up 24 school children in Baghdad. Yes, of course there's a connection. We're fighting the same people. And they will rue the day. We will outlive and outkill and outfight them. They say they prefer death to life. Maybe they do. If they want to be martyrs, we're here to help. But our love, really here to help, but our love for London will outlive their hatred and their love for death, believe me.
Hear,
No
hear.
question about that.
Hear, hear.